When you're trying to be everywhere all the time, it can get really overwhelming, especially if you're not seeing the results you want. So the key is to be strategic with your visibility and streamline it so you're getting a better ROI. You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 406. And today I'm going to cover how to stop being so overwhelmed with all of your visibility strategies and start getting a better ROI. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It is your host, Melanie Benson, Authority Amplifier. And today we're going to be talking about overwhelm and how so many times when you're trying to do all the things that you've been told you should do, this overwhelm can creep in and it actually starts to sabotage your mindset, your resolve, your motivation for several reasons, which we'll talk about today. But I want to paint a picture of how this could get streamlined, how this could get simplified, and actually produce better results for you. And depending on what your goals are right now, whether you're looking to take a pivot that you've made in your business, or maybe you're updating some of the work that you're doing, you're looking for a better way to stand out online. For some of my clients, you've made a massive shift in what you offer or what your brand positioning is, and now is the time to kind of do a big refresh and makeover. I really want to speak to something that I don't hear a lot about, and that's this feeling that creeps in of, oh my gosh, I have to do all the things and I can't. And I don't want to, and it's oppressing, and it's basically sucking the joy out of the thing that you love the most. So today's episode is really a way to maybe shift the paradigm about being everywhere all the time. A friend of mine used to say, it's not about being everywhere. It's about being consistently present where your ideal clients are. So you don't have to be everywhere. And if this is something that's been coming up for you lately, stay tuned. I'll talk about a path of how we might work together to really amplify the reach of your work in the world and to be able to make really good money, but do it in a way that's more sustainable. So stay tuned. I'll talk about that a little bit once we get into this process. Now, I think there's two different reasons why people get overwhelmed, especially experts, or actually three different reasons. One is you are trying to do too many different things. You're trying to be present everywhere. There's a lot of things that you have to move forward, and it starts to feel oppressive because it's hard to keep up with all of it. It's hard to keep track of it. It's hard to keep up with creating all the content. I've certainly bumped into this one myself. And this idea of I have to constantly be feeding the free content machine can get very overwhelming. If you can relate to that, give me a little shout out. Tell me that you get that one. The second thing that happens that creates the overwhelm is that you're trying to do all the things by yourself. And you're trying to create it all. You're trying to produce it all. You're trying to deploy it all. You're trying to keep up with all of the information or the responses coming back in, and you're doing all of it yourself. This is a whole episode in itself about how you become a bottleneck. And interestingly enough, even though my Authority Accelerator program is not necessarily about leveraging your time through delegation, this always seems to come up. And so if you find that you're lone rangering it and you're bumping up against the wall, just know you're not alone. There's a simpler way through that. And the third thing that tends to create this kind of overwhelm that I've noticed is it's not working. You're putting a lot of results in, or a lot of effort into what you're doing, and you're not getting the results. And it may feel like you're spinning your wheels, throwing a bunch of pasta at the wall, and you're like, well, is something going to stick somewhere, right? And it's overwhelming when you're putting so much heart and soul into everything you're doing. You're trying to do all the right things, and you're not seeing a result. Now, let's just put the summer aside as we're airing this episode. You know, especially the US and I think other parts of the country or the world have really experienced a tough summer. A lot of people were not able to pivot their offerings to be as relevant as they should be. And yeah, it was a hard summer for a lot of people. And it was a lot of talk was about people stop buying. People aren't responding the same way. Their buying patterns have changed. People don't have money, right? All of that could be true, but there's also some other truth in that is this is the time where being nimble helps, and having a simple strategy that you can deploy at any time you need and hopefully consistently is what's going to perform better than anything. So that's what I want to lay out for you today. And, I'm not perfect at this by any means, but when we deploy my process, where it's a very simple method, but we literally have worked this process into a workflow that is just like plug and play, we get pretty good results. Okay, so with all that said, what I want to do is let's talk about what's before and what's possible when we do this differently. So before, you're spinning your wheels, you're overwhelmed, you're feeling like maybe this isn't working, maybe I shouldn't be doing any of this, right? Like there's a moment where we start to say, all right, I don't know, like maybe I'm just not cut out for content, maybe I'm not good at video, maybe podcast guesting or being a speaker isn't really my path because people aren't responding the way I thought they would or the way I was told by people that teach this. What I want for you is to have a process where when you do the process, it's like you're turning on a light switch that on is I'm getting a steady stream of client leads. Okay, now sometimes you have to try a few other little things. You got to tweak some things to keep the flow going, but you should have a simple process that's dialed into you, your authentic lighthouse message, your authentic energy, your superpowers, that when you turn that process on and you consistently work this process, you're getting high value clients knocking on your door saying, hey, how can you help? There are so many pieces that people forget go into a successful strategy, from having the right message to having the right audiences to having the right sales mechanisms and the right offer. You have to have all of those components down. And if you do not, I highly recommend that you do not wait another 30 days, another 3 days, another 3 hours to apply for my Authority Accelerator program, because I guarantee you this problem's not going away by doing more. It's not going away by getting a better message. You have to have all of those components really dialed in, and your confidence and your energy and your enthusiasm for what you do has to be high, because that's the energy required right now to get people into action and moving to being your client. So you need to have that clarity so that you can be massively inspiring to the people who are looking for exactly what you do. And if you don't have that dialed in, let's apply right now for the Authority Accelerator program. I will drop that link. You can always go to melaniebenson.com/coaching and follow the links there to the program that you're interested in. So let's talk a little bit more about the overwhelm. We talked about what might be creating the overwhelm. And one of the things I didn't mention yet is this trying to be active all the time on every single platform and do all the things, especially if it's just you and your business. And if you are doing that and you don't have a strategic plan, it's going to be even more complex and more frustrating, and more results are going to be passing you by, and you're going to be wondering why you can't pull all this together. There are so many different platforms that need feeding. And I'm not the person to do all of it and to do all of it well. Like, that's just not my deal. I'm all about pick 3 to 5 places to be visible and optimize them. And if that feels like too much, pick 3. Just do 3 things really well. And I'll tell you about my authority trifecta in a moment. And that might be the perfect 3 things for you. The other thing is, all your platforms do not serve your ideal clients. When I'm working with a client who's ready to really accelerate their authority and dial this whole process in, a big part of it is, where is your ideal clients? What resources do they turn to make decisions, to get exposed to new thinking, to get referrals or find solutions? Is it a podcast? Are they podcast bingers? Are they YouTube watchers? Are they social media scrollers, right? And really understanding where your audience is present and what their buying practices are, where they go to research and vet and make decisions can be a huge advantage to you, because you can start to pick the right platforms to attract the right audiences. Because if you're in front of the wrong audiences, trust me, you're going to definitely be overwhelmed. You're going to put yourself in a lot of different places where nothing's going to happen. And this is one of the, the side impacts of if you've got FOMO and you're like, I can be everywhere all the time. And you really tend to have that energetic pull to saying yes to all the invitations, whether or not they're a good fit. You're probably going to get overwhelmed being too many places that your ideal clients are not. And one last thing, this is a misstep that I think a lot of experts make as they go through really honing in their visibility strategy, is you don't really know what practices are going to showcase your superpowers in the best way, and or what's really aligned with your business goals. And so, you feel like you have to do it all. Look, I know Instagram Reels and TikTok, that's not where my buyers are. And there's a real allure when you hear people talking about, yes, I'm getting thousands of leads and I'm getting all these people commenting on my TikTok videos. Yeah, but how many of those people are actually going through the buyer journey and becoming your client? Okay, so I don't know. I did a TikTok test for a while, and I'll tell you who was saying yes and opting or commenting on my stuff. A bunch of dudes in a totally different country. And they were not looking for business coaching, if you get my drift. So that's not where I want to be present. That's not where my best people are. Now, there may be people that this is perfect for. That's why you need to know who your audience is and where being present is really going to serve you. Don't get caught up in doing things just for the sake of doing them. You want a strategy, you want clarity, and you need to have a match between your audience, your superpowers, and your message. And where are you going to bring that forward so people can see you, they can hire you, they can lean into the work that you're doing? There's a few signs that you're in this overwhelm trap. And one of them we've talked about, you're putting a lot of effort, but seeing very minimal results. You feel like you're shouting into a void and you're not getting a response that you're looking for. Okay, these are the basic ones, but there's something even deeper coming forward. A lot of people are starting to talk about it in the Visibility Accelerator Club that I run. And I've heard my clients talk about this for years, and I've bumped into this. It's like you start to resent marketing. You start to resent having to be visible. You start to resent the process and the effort. And you make up a story about, oh, it doesn't work for me anyway, or I'm not good at it, or I don't have time, right? Whatever the story is. And then you literally stop doing it because it's created this overwhelming feeling and you don't want to feel overwhelmed anymore. And I get it. Like, nobody wants to feel overwhelmed. Okay. And so if you have stopped all of your visibility efforts because you have believed and you have started to make this decision that it just isn't going to work for you, chances are your cash flow is revealing to you that this is not a good situation. Now, you do not have to compete with all of the super big budget marketers. That's what I love about the practices that I teach. You don't have to be like a super savvy marketer to be successful with all this. You do have to really understand who your market is, who your ideal client is, what they're struggling with, and where to be visible to capture their attention. And that's where the shift from all of this, do all the things and, be overwhelmed, to being very strategic and intentional with your visibility matters. I want you to write this down. Simplify my presence to amplify my reach. Okay, simplify my presence to amplify my reach. And I'm going to outline a very, very powerful process. This is the same thing I teach in my Authority Accelerator program. And I teach it because it works. It's what I've done for 20 years. At first, I did it on stages. Now I do some stages, but I do a lot virtually. I use what I call my authority trifecta, which I'll explain in a minute. But it all starts, everything starts with you having a dialed in, super powerful, very aligned, what I call Lighthouse Message. This Lighthouse Message does the heavy lifting, and it educates your audience and clarifies to the world what your superpower is and why it's valuable to your audience. And this message, when you put it in front of the right audiences, it should cut through the noise. It should create a resonance and a draw to your ideal client, because they're looking for your solution, and it's literally like part the water, part all the noise, and they see you. And if your Lighthouse Message is not doing that, then you probably don't have a Lighthouse Message yet. And that's okay. We all go through a lot of reiterations till we land on it. And I just love when I know someone's landed on it, because literally like every cell in their body goes, oh my gosh, that's it. And then when your ideal clients hear it, they go, whew, I've been looking for you. So get your Lighthouse Message. Secondly, now we need to know what the right platforms are. This might take a little testing. And I do a lot of research with my clients to help them find the right platforms. Now, for some people, it's going to be speaking at live events. For some people, it's going to be dominating YouTube or Instagram Reels or TikTok, right? Whatever that is. That video is your jam and you're super engaging and really you're a powerhouse on video. And for some people, it's going to be having your own podcast or being a guest on other people's podcasts. That's my jam. I can do video, all of the things, but podcasts, this is where my brain and my superpowers and my strategy thinking, all of this comes together. And I really have learned this process from trial and error of what works when you're being interviewed or when you're interviewing other people. And I don't think you need to be everywhere, but I do think at a minimum, everybody needs to get their message out across podcasts, because everybody can use this process to attract more clients, to impact the lives of more people, to build up a audience who, even if they're not buying right now, they're curious. Every time I go somewhere, I was at a friend's birthday party not too long ago, and I ran into some people I knew there, and they're like, oh yeah, I read all of your stuff. Never comments. I love what you do. I probably need to hire you. You can see where that's going, right? So people are watching what you're doing if you're in front of audiences where they make buying decisions, where they like to be nurtured and get to know your work. This is why I love my strategic plan of using an authority trifecta. So let me explain what this is. My authority trifecta is a three-pronged approach that I've used over and over and over again. And in the center of it is your Lighthouse Message. And I want you to think of it like a triangle. And point number one is your social media. Now, before you balk and go, I can't stand social media, nobody ever engages with me on there. It's probably because what you've been doing is an older paradigm approach to social media. And yeah, it doesn't work. But what I teach does work. And every time I go through my strategic process, really build connections on social media. And I would say about 60% of the people that enroll in my Authority Accelerator program come from my social media process. And yes, the way you've been doing it up to now may or may not be what's effective. So part one is content. There's a whole strategy behind that. I've talked about it before on the podcast. If you want me to hook you up with that episode, just let me know. But that whole process around your authority trifecta, it is so powerful. It's like, think of it like you're building a net where you're going to hold all of the people who are interested, and you're going to keep touching them and engaging them and intriguing them with what you do. And when you hit the right combination of steps, they're going to say like, I'm ready, I'm in. It's just fascinating the way it works. So that's part one. Part two is you going out and being visible on what I call other people's $1 million visibility streams. And this is, when done well, This is not you taking anything from anybody. This is you borrowing in a win-win-win mentality, that like you want to be adding so much value to the person who hosts that visibility stream, so much value to the people that are the participants, the listeners, the audience, and so much value for you that it like exponentially has this compounding effect. And this is where massive results come from, because now you've brought this message to that community, your lighthouse message, with content and this reinforcement of everything you do. So everything where somebody looks, because if you've done that well, they're going to go check you out on social media. They're like, Shazam, there's something really powerful about this person. I want to know more. Okay, it's not creepy. It's not hypey. It's really solid, aligned, supercharged content that like people find irresistible. The last part of the trifecta, I personally find that podcasts works really well, but it could be anything. It could be live events. It could be online events. It could be a masterclass series you do. It could be a low-cost offer that you have. You need something in that third leg of or that third corner of your triangle in the trifecta to now bring them into your world and give them an opportunity to say yes to working with you. Okay, so there's a lot of things that can be in that third element. You have to find the most aligned thing, again, where your superpowers come alive, your audience finds it really resonant and it's relevant to them and they can't wait to say yes. And it does the job of moving them from being curious or interested to being a yes buyer. That's when you have a very powerful strategy, and that's where the monetization comes from. Now, of course, this plan has to stay aligned with your business goals, with your lifestyle goals, with your superpowers, so that it feels exciting. You want to keep doing it because it's using the best energies of you. And that's really where this whole thing takes off. Now, there's a fourth step, and that's being consistent. Okay, you need to be consistent with whatever you decide to do. This is where I see a lot of people have like a spike and then fall into this chasm. Is they try something once, maybe it doesn't work as well as they'd hoped, and they're like, off to the next thing. Or they don't do anything, and they're just waiting for some referrals to come in or somebody to maybe listen or hear something they've done randomly and say yes. This works best when you have a consistent strategy and you build it in. It's almost like you're creating this ecosystem, that the ecosystem is self-sustaining. It's like you have so much fun with it. It's so much joy. It's all part of a systemic way of you making sure that the people in the world that need what you do, that can benefit from your solutions, know who you are. They recognize your expertise and why you, and they know where to find you because you've been visible. Okay, so whatever the system is, I am a huge fan of habits and systems. The habit is, what do I do over and over and over again that brings me in front of the people who are looking for my solutions? And the system is, how do I make sure it gets done where I don't have to push a boulder upstream all by myself all of the time? So that might mean a team. It might mean you design workflows. You have a project management tool, whatever it is. That's what you need if you're struggling with this. That's where that's my superpower, is helping people figure those things out. Now, what should be different at the end is you should notice that you're not feeling overwhelmed. I mean, you might have the occasional little stress bubble because you're trying something new, or you're going through something and it's a little extra efforting, but that should be the exception, not the rule. The rule should be, I love what I'm doing. I love that I'm touching lives. I love that I'm being able to bring what I do. And it's like I light up because I get to change lives for the better. That's the energy you want to be in. If you're not there right now, then let's figure out what's coloring, what's filter are you going through that's causing you to feel disengaged. You should be experiencing engagement in some way, shape, or form with people when you are using your authority trifecta, that they maybe have been following you for years, and they are all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, I need this. And you need to know that you're constantly getting in front of new audiences who maybe don't know you, and you're building a new relationship with people so that you're constantly replenishing your own community. Because let's face it, not everybody's a buyer. Not right now. Okay, so you want that new exposure, so you're constantly adding new people to your communities. And you should be seeing a really powerful, I really think you should be 10xing your effort. You should be noticing that when you're doing this well, you get 10 times the results from the effort you're putting out. And if you're not getting that, we need to either optimize your Lighthouse message, we need to optimize your offer, we need to optimize your process, meaning your sales journey might have some leaks in it, or we need to optimize where you're being present, what platforms. One of those 4 components are usually off if you're not seeing the return on investment that you have intended for. So that's how to move out of the overwhelm. Now, you may be thinking, Melanie, that still feels like a lot. And if that's where you're feeling it, I get it. But just know when you dial this process in, this is not going to feel overwhelming. This is going to feel fun. This is going to feel like just joy expanding. I don't know how to explain it any other way, except when I am in that flow, it's like everything feels right with my world. I feel on fire, and I want that for you too. So if you're ready for that and you're not experiencing that right now, I definitely want you to reach out. You'll see the links below. You can apply for my Authority Accelerator program and just make the decision. I will have an intentional strategic visibility strategy that's so exciting that it's contagious. All right. I can't wait to hear your ahas from today's episode. And just know it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It should be fun. And you probably are just 2 feet away from it being exactly that. Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. We're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.